Thank you very much indeed, sir. I hope you can both see and hear me. Um, I would like to thank the Institute for inviting me. I would like to be a bit more modest about who I am and what I do. To mention that, yes, I used to work in information technology, and I have been working a lot in corporate governance. But as mentioned also by the president in his remarks, this is a relatively new area. And it's an area in which we will all be learning and seeing ourselves more as peer-to-peer learning than having an expert come to present to us. But having said that, I have a presentation that I would like to speak to this morning, if you permit me. Okay. I found the topic also very interesting as I was preparing, because looking at the evolving dynamics in IT governance and the role of stakeholders. So perhaps let me start with the end in mind. My summary is that according to experts, getting rid of COVID-19 from the earth may be challenging despite the discovery of vaccines. And it may not be technically feasible going by the experience that experts have gained from managing other diseases. So the bottom line is then that we should continue to expect disruptions, that these will flare up from time to time. So COVID-19 and other environmental factors appear to be driving the need for change. And may I add, from the words of the chairman of the occasion, they may be also driving the need for speed. Robust responses cannot be achieved without technology. And technology deployment will neither be effective nor efficient without governance. And IT governance will not be effective without the direction and control of key stakeholders in leadership, and I dare say outside of leadership as well. So, as if business was not challenged enough, because prior to the arrival of COVID-19, we know that aggregation business models, that's the kind of business model that Uber uses. The kind of business model where you use a system to disrupt the way in which things used to be done. So Uber did it for taxi service. We know that there have been disruptive offerings also, even in hotel management and in providing hotel rooms. There have been many aggregation business models that were disrupting the world. And the way they did it was through deploying technology in new ways. Sometimes it is not earth-shattering technology, but it's just a new way of using the technology. And this was already forcing companies to review their business models. We know that as collaboration tools were in the ascendancy, they were already giving some businesses an edge. It was already putting pressure on the strategy and structure of competition. Maybe I should also add here, internet-based online services were also having this sort of effect. For example, looking at the kinds of services that Amazon was already providing, it put pressure on so many other business sectors. We know that cloud computing, and also from the submission of the chairman of the occasion, maybe to that I should add mobile computing, add artificial intelligence. Also, all of these things were in the ascendancy already. and they were already giving great leverage and agility to those who were able to embrace them very well. So distributed company operations in far-flung and challenging environments were already being enabled for some. Also, we started to see the ascendancy of regulatory technologies, which were starting to trend, driven by increasingly complex regulatory environments. I would say particularly for the financial services industry, that found themselves needing to respond to all sorts of regulatory pressures and requirements from across the world in the different jurisdictions in which they are operating. So business was already very challenged. Coming back to the context of Nigeria, we'll see that Nigeria itself already had pre-existing ailments before COVID-19 arrived. We were still reeling from the oil price shocks. We were just crawling out of a recession, and we were trying to put it behind us. We thought we could put it behind us for good. We had a whole raft of pre-existing problems of our own. And to mention a few, maybe I should talk about the fact that government has remained the dominant player in our economy, that we have had a reliance on oil and gas exports for forex earnings. Our non-oil exports have not grown, at least to our satisfaction, the kinds of ambitions that we have had for non-oil sector. We've had challenges coordinating fiscal and monetary policies, and that policy confusion had already begun before COVID arrived. We also have had challenges providing basic infrastructure and amenities. We have struggled to create meaningful work, particularly for our youth between the ages of 18 and 35. Security of lives and property had continued to elude us in many locations across the country. And the cost of doing business was already over the top and difficult. So as though it was not enough that we had those competitive pressures and we had pre-existing challenges that had plagued us, then COVID-19 had to come and change the world. According to Deloitte, COVID-19 has had a big impact. Number one, on raw material supply chains. We saw that even in the quest to provide face masks, to provide respirators, and so on, that it ruptured the supply chains because it started from China. And China had become the factory, the dominant factory of the world. So in order to be able to get some of the materials and finished goods that were required, those supply chains were under pressure, value chains came under pressure, and it placed an inflationary risk on most products across the world. On the positive side, it has accelerated, and maybe the speed concept comes in here, remote working, because people had no choice. Companies that did not have an online presence and could not have an online presence, who could not put up remote working, I dare say suffered the most under the lockdowns. It has necessitated a closer look at value chains end to end. But on the positive side, it has also reduced harmful effects of human activity on the planet. For instance, we saw pictures of places where marine wildlife did not come anywhere near town. We saw in Europe that marine wildlife like dolphins were allegedly sighted in the canals in the Netherlands and also in Italy. We also saw that some rare ducks were able to go on the aircraft runways in some parts of Africa and so on. So, and also where we had huge pollution across the world, all of those harmful effects of human activity started to reduce, showing us that there was a direct correlation between our activity and the lack of sustainability in some of the choices that we had made. So all these have had a corresponding impact on the need for technology. So as was mentioned in the beginning, the speed with which we need to adopt and stay on top and use technology has been vastly accelerated due to the advent of COVID-19. But can I say that the bets will have to be even bigger going forward? According to an article in Financial Management magazine from May this year, to survive the world post-COVID-19, companies would have to do a whole range of things, and I've selected 5 things here. They're going to have to prioritize people's health and safety. But how can you prioritize health and safety of your staff without introducing remote working? And if you have remote working without worrying about infrastructure, without worrying about IT infrastructure specifically, how to deploy it, how to manage it, and how to keep it cost effective. Also, we would have to move to understand liquidity. So we will have to control our inventory of stock. We'll also have to control our accounts receivables. So to manage all of that and manage it remotely, you're going to depend also on technology. There's no way you're going to be able to control the business, especially when it is a distributed business. It would be very difficult to do without technology. Then in its own right, they feel that businesses around the globe are going to have to ramp up digital transformation. And there's going to be need to seek government and insurance support. And if Nigeria is anything to go by, as we saw with the challenges of deciding who should have access to palliatives, how do we distribute palliatives to the right people? Without data, without information on who they are, having a profile of them, to be able to intelligently allocate scarce resources, we find that even government and insurance support will be a major challenge without technology. Also, that going forward, businesses will have to document critical gaps. They're going to be learning as they're going on, and they're going to have to be learning as they're doing to quickly understand where they have critical gaps in their infrastructure, gaps in the robustness of their plans, and to plug it very quickly. So IT deployment, not only is it being accelerated, it would have to be done on the fly very quickly, and it may be done remotely, where all the stakeholders who have to take decisions are going to be very remote from each other. What systems do we have in place to respond to these sorts of things? So practically all the issues that the experts are projecting, businesses will have to grapple with in order to be able to weather this bout of COVID-19 properly, will involve large bets and reliance on information technology. Therefore, getting information technology right will become even more crucial. I mentioned earlier that I've worked in technology before, and let me not mention the company I've worked with, but there was a joke among staff there that IT projects are notorious when they're badly managed because they would deliver only half of what was promised in twice the time that has been allotted, and if you are lucky, it will be only at twice the cost. Otherwise, sometimes it's at many multiples of the initial cost. This is the notoriety that many IT projects have garnered over the years. So perhaps some who are from IT may think that this is an unfair statement on my part, and I apologize for that in advance, but I am making the statement to illustrate the need to properly manage information technology projects. So the way that such projects are directed and controlled could make the difference between survival in a COVID-19 era and business failure. So our survival post-COVID, if there's any such thing, or rather our survival as we're coming out of one round of COVID before the next, is going to depend on our ability to direct and control information technology projects. And they're going to be flying off one after the other. Therefore, IT governance is something that boards and business leaders must place as top priority today. So, what is IT governance? And I believe in the introduction by Dr. Ndanusa, the chairman of the occasion, he alluded to this framework for IT governance, that it involves value delivery, strategic alignment between the enterprise strategic objectives and goals and the IT objectives and goals and so on, performance management, risk management, resource management. And that is all that is involved in information technology governance. So IT governance is really about how we choose, implement, and maintain IT systems to deliver value and mitigate business risk. So how do we choose? How do we implement? How do we maintain IT systems to deliver value and mitigate business risk? So it's going to involve our having to be able to do the right things in the governance and do things right. The right things are to ensure that it is designed to deliver value, and we can control and direct that and ensure it happens. And we have to ensure that whatever is coming out of it is strategically aligned with where the organization needs to be. We have to be able to do the right thing. But we also have to do things right. So we need to be able to track performance. We need to be able to manage risk. And we need to also ensure sound resource management in the process. Incidentally, doing the right thing, consistently doing the right thing and doing things right is also a definition for integrity. It is also a definition for excellence. You cannot be excellent if you're not doing the right thing and doing things right. You cannot achieve excellence. You also cannot achieve sustainability without doing the right things and doing things right. We will find that by and large, good governance is about doing the right things and doing things right. And IT governance is not exempt from that. So the imperatives today out of IT governance is to ensure transparency, ensure return on investment, multiply business opportunity, and ensure high performance, amongst other things. So in this discourse, I'm going to keep it high level. We're not going to be addressing governance frameworks like COBIT, and there are others. We're not going to be addressing governance guidelines, and there are guidelines. So operational persons can research those areas. We will also not be reviewing what sort of governance structures are best suited to achieving IT governance. I'll be focusing just on the dynamics at this high level. So let's start with value delivery. Maybe we'll recall the unfair comment I made about delivery of IT projects, being that they under-deliver, they overspend, and they take much too long compared to what was promised. And without sound governance, you will not be able to get that in the right order. So yes, frameworks like COVID define the ways and methods through which an organization can implement, manage, and monitor IT governance within an organization. And guidelines are available for strategic actors like directors. So in order to ensure value, you are going to have to direct and control. The organ within the company that focuses on direction and control is the board. So you have the members of the board also as stakeholders, and you will have your chief executives and your C-level leaders within the business are clear people who have to be on top of value delivery. Then there's strategic alignment. Again, strategy is the primary responsibility, is one of the primary functions of any board. So setting vision, mission, what business we're in, and so on is the business of the board. Strategy and structure to use to carry out that business is the business of the board. Delegation to management and how to monitor that delegation is also a board function. And then ensuring that stakeholder value is being monitored and stakeholder reporting requirements are being met, whether it's the shareholders, whether it's regulatory stakeholders and so on, or whether even host communities. All of those things are also responsibilities of the board to ensure that there are frameworks in place for it. And since today, even if it wasn't yesterday, but in a COVID situation and a post-COVID world, you cannot do any of those things consistently, effectively, or efficiently without information technology. Any well-meaning board will therefore have to make it the cornerstone of the tools that they have at their disposal, which they must be on top of. Then there's the issue of performance management. Why have an IT system if it will not help you on the financial dimension? For instance, how does the company continue to look under COVID, post-COVID, in the eyes of your shareholders? Managing how the organization looks in the eyes of its customers. Identifying what the business must excel at during COVID, post-COVID, all of that must be enabled by IT. Then innovation and learning, so that we can position to continue to improve and create value. All of these things can be managed using a balanced scorecard approach. And performance management of IT is another way of looking at the outcomes and impact of the spending on IT, which also is very, or should be very important to the board and the leadership. Then we have risk management. Yeah, we generally have risk management within enterprises and so on, but we may need to look at the International Risk Governance Council and their risk governance framework, which they have, which includes around IT risk governance. Risks that accompany change are often accompanied by potential benefits and opportunities, but they could also have a downside, especially where this change has to be done at speed and high speed, for that matter, for the organization to continue to exist and for it to manage its returns to its stakeholders. Better risk governance implies enabling business to benefit from change while minimizing the negative consequences of the associated risks. And I will not go into detail of risk management. resource management. Also, those who get the best out of IT day to day work through service level agreements. They hold IT accountable to service level agreements to different parts of the business. You have to tell us how much downtime will be there. We have to define it in our risk management framework. What is tolerable? What is intolerable? What are the service level agreements? How quickly will you get various things achieved and done? All of those things need to be defined so we're making effective and efficient service delivery coming out of information technology. So let's also, to round up, let's go quickly to the stakeholders. As I've mentioned already, the board, the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, the chief information officer, the chief risk officer, they are probably the most obvious internal stakeholders that we must have. But then there are also business executives. There are business process owners who have deliverables against the business process and are being measured by it. And they are going to depend on that technology. You have business managers who probably have P&L responsibility. You have risk managers who have to ensure that there are good mitigation strategies, including from within the governance of information technology systems, security managers, service managers, HR managers, internal audit, privacy officers, those who have to ensure that we are not abusing information, we're not abusing technology, that we have clear policies that are not going counter to international standards that are being established around privacy. So even IT users are impacted, IT managers are impacted. Therefore, proper governance is going to involve using a RASI model. Some will be responsible, some will be accountable, and so on. Some need to be consulted, and we need to look at the roles that all of these stakeholders will play. But we also have external stakeholders, which include at least our business partners and our suppliers. Because as I mentioned earlier, part of what COVID-19 has done was to disrupt supply chains. We have to make sure that we keep our connection with our shareholders, we keep our regulators happy. We have also government as an external stakeholder. We have external users, we have customers, standards organizations, external auditors, and so on and so forth. So we also need to look at what all of these parties require from our systems and ensure that in the design of these systems, and better still, in their governance, that they're being directed and controlled in ways that we integrate into our corporate governance framework. So performance is guaranteed, conformance is guaranteed, execution is guaranteed, and long-term overview is maintained. So we see where we're going despite all of the challenges going on in the business environment. So I would like to conclude the way I began, that according to experts, getting rid of COVID-19 from the earth may be challenging despite the discovery of vaccines, and may not actually be technically feasible, going by the experience that humankind has had from managing other diseases. The bottom line then is that we should expect disruptions from COVID-19 and maybe from mutations of COVID-19 or other things that lead to serious epidemics. So COVID-19 and other environmental and contextual factors in Nigeria will continue to drive the need and the speed for change. Robust responses cannot be achieved without technology, as we've said, and technology deployment will neither be effective nor efficient without governance. And finally, let me say that IT governance will not be effective without the direction and control of leadership. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to our very distinguished past president, Dr. Suleiman Indanusa. We also welcome to our fold our immediate past president, Mr. Samuel Kolawole. I can see the background, which is very unique. I also welcome to this particular gathering our very distinguished council members and our resource persons today. We are having one of the most important programs of the Institute, which is the Roundtable on Corporate Governance. As you are all aware, ICSAN is the hub of governance professionals, and that is why anything relating to corporate governance or governance generally is of interest to us. And what we have done this particular year is to look at the current trend and the new developments that we are coping with and the implication of that new development. 10, 15 years ago, the way we operate was such that we are operating manually. However, as I said in several engagements, COVID-19 is the digital rapture of the workplace and the means of interaction. We've now been forced to operate digitally. And because of this new space that we have now found ourselves, there is the need for us to put governance in place in such a way that we'll be in a position to manage the risk, associated risks to this new development. And that is why we have carefully chosen this particular team, involving issues, involving dynamics in IT governance, the obligations of stakeholders. Gone are the days where we assign responsibilities only to some groups of people, maybe experts. Nowadays, we as stakeholders, we are involved in the entire end-to-end process. For example, in the past, you say, when we talk about IT, yes, this is the technical area. It's no longer a technical area. When you look at the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, it has given the responsibility to the board of directors on issues relating to IT governance, and that they should have a policy around that. So it shows that it's a collective responsibility, right from the highest level of any organization to the lowest level. And that's why we be looking at the obligations of all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, so that we are not only using this particular platform that we have been forced to operate in, but we use it in such a way that we consider the interests of all the stakeholders, and in such a way that we continue to take the benefits of this particular new initiative, and then we'll be in a position to do our jobs better, manage the dynamics in a very proactive manner, so that we can all benefit from it. So it is as a result of that we have assembled very distinguished resource persons, experts in their own fields, that will be in a position to at least share their experiences with us and also advise us appropriately on how to navigate this new area. It's new area because and it's still evolving. That is the strange thing about it. And that's why also the topic starts with evolving. So it's not as if it has come to stay. It's still evolving, and nobody knows the destination. But it's just a journey that we must willingly participate in, so that we can know the evolution and try as much as possible to cope and also shape the direction in such a way that we benefit from it. Today is not a day for making long speeches. I must thank the resource persons who have accepted our invitation. Mr. Soji Apampa is well known in the industry. We also know Mrs. Ndidi Paluba, Mr. Adewale Adeyipo, and Dr. Sheun Bishua. They will assist us to do justice to it. And we are in a very good hand. The chairman of the occasion is a peculiar person to us, and also particularly in respect of this team, is an area that is very has shown tremendous interest. And we must specifically thank the members, particularly the chairman of the corporate governance capacity building committee, Dr. Adenika Hassan, for putting this particular program up, and then the members of the secretariat. I'm very sure we will enjoy ourselves today. we learn new things. And please, as usual, share your comments on the chat box, ask your questions in the Q&A box, so that, as you say, it's an evolving area. So nobody will say he has monopoly of knowledge. Just ask the questions and the experts will guide us. So it was on that note that I welcome you to what appears to be the last program. We have reserved the best for the last of the Institute in 2020, while wishing you a prosperous year 2020. Thank you.
Graduates, students of ICSAN, I'm highly honored for this unique opportunity to share this very interesting and important conversation in the area of evolving dynamics in IT governance, obligations of stakeholders. I'm equally excited by the prospect of a very robust and interesting conversation today. This is obvious given the very eminent lineup of speakers and discussants. Other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to the 2020 Roundtable on Corporate Governance. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the pursuit of everything digital is happening at an accelerating pace. Speed has become a huge resource or a source of value, whether measured by faster decision-making or how quickly an organization can go from ideas to revenue. In the race to harness emerging technologies, such as cloud computing, mobile solutions, artificial intelligence, machine learning, social media and Internet of Things, and innovation, it is easy to forget about governance, and that can result in unintended and significant costs and risks. This therefore underscores the need for establishing a governance framework that embraces disruptive technologies and encourages innovation while ensuring risks are identified and managed for the survival and thrive of any organization in an increasingly digital world. IT governance, as we all know, is an attempt to specify the decision rights and accountability framework to encourage desirable behavior in the use of IT. If you recall, after Sarbanes-Oxley Act was enacted in the US in 2002, followed by similar regulations in many countries around the world, corporate governance and ITG, that is Internet governance, information technology governance, have become more and more connected. Today, the IT control plan has become integrated into the overall enterprise compliance plan. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this topic of today also recognizes the importance of stakeholders. The significance of stakeholders' claim is determined through the concept, of course, stakeholder saliency, because we have different kinds of stakeholder. Some of them have power. Some of them have legitimacy from the social contract and context. And some, of course, have a duty to ensure they press attention to the urgency for the society and, of course, for other stakeholders. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our discussion today will focus on governance and taking the interest of stakeholders on board so that whatever we have reflect their interests. We know that there are different typologies of stakeholders. Some stakeholders are dormant stakeholders, some are discretionary stakeholders, some are demanding, some are dominant, some are dangerous, some are dependent, some are definitive, and we also have non-stakeholders. But it is very important that we all take account of the different kinds of stakeholders in the evolving technology and how we can ensure that the technology, though has advantages, must cater for all. The scope of internet information technology governance usually involves about 5 main focus areas: the delivery of value, the mitigation of risks, strategic alignment, resource management, and performance measurement. All above are driven by the stakeholder value, and therefore that is why the topic of today is very germane and very important, because it focuses on the stakeholder. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with this array of very eminent speakers and discussants, I think we're in good hands. We look forward to a very exciting, very robust conversation today. I will advise strictly that the moderator helps us to ensure that speakers and discussants keep to time so that we can have value for time and value for money. On that note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this roundtable is declared, and then we look forward to where we would invite questions and answers. And I wish the speakers and discussants very well. Thank you so much.